So the speaker today is Hank Pelissier, the founder and director of Humanist Mutual Aid Network, which is a non-profit organization headquartered in San Francisco Bay Area of California, USA. Humanist Mutual Aid Network is a 13-year-old organization that provides assistance to secular humanist groups primarily in Africa and South Asia, especially in the nations of Kenya, here in Kenya, Mozambique, Nigeria, Ghana, Senegal, Liberia, Chad, Niger Republic, the Gambia, India, Myanmar, the Philippines, and Appalachia, United States. So those are the countries that Hank is involved with. Now, Hank received a BA History at the University of California in Santa Barbara and an MA in Humanities and Religious Studies from California State University in Dominguez Hills. He is married with 2 daughters who are studying in college just like you, one in Boston and one in London, and is a foster parent of an 8-year-old Muslim girl from Somali State, just our neighbor Somali State, and Ethiopia. And Ethiopia, eh? Somali State, oh, Somali State, Ethiopia. Okay. In the past, Hank worked as a columnist for the New York Times, as the managing director and conference organizer for a futurist think tank, as a preschool director, and as a comic storyteller, puppeteer, and slam poet. Hank is also an anti-war freedom of speech activist. So Hank, we're happy to have you here, and welcome. So you can start.
Now I can talk. Okay. Hello, students at the University of Nairobi in Kenya. I am happy to see you all, very happy. I am now in a little town called Piedmont, which is near San Francisco, and it's very early in the morning. It's 6:12 in the morning, but I'm happy to be awake and to see all of you. I have never been to Kenya except at the airport as I was traveling to Uganda. I've been to Uganda 3 times, visiting humanist schools that my nonprofit built or were supporting. And one of my daughters was recently in Nairobi, and she enjoyed it very much. I'm going to talk today about multiple things. I'm going to talk about free thinking, and I'm going to talk about my nonprofit, and I'm going to talk about sustainability and job opportunities in Kenya. I want to start this lecture by telling you my own story about my own path to becoming a free thinker when I was exactly your age, when I was in college. I grew up Catholic, and I went to Catholic schools, and I was actually a very good little Catholic boy. I got A's in religion, mostly because I liked the Bible stories, and I liked the holy cards that you got, that the nuns would give me if I was a good student. I was also an altar boy, and I got to carry the crown of flowers that Mother Mary wore on holy days, because I was the boy with the best grades in religion in my class. So I was a very religious little boy, but I was also full of doubts about religion. I remember going to confession once. Confession is a thing that Catholics do, and I remember telling the priest there that I had doubts about Catholicism, especially about the Holy Trinity, because I didn't understand how God could be 3 different people, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And the priest just told me that to have doubts at my age was very normal. And I'm assuming that all of you are here because you also have doubts. And so, and that is why you are a free thinker in this group and in this particular Zoom meeting. Everything changed for me when I went to college, just like you. I went to college when I was 18 years old, and suddenly I was out of the view of my parents. My parents took me to church every Sunday, and suddenly they were no longer there, and going to church seemed kind of optional. I didn't really have to go. It would involve lying to my parents and telling them that I was going, but I was prepared to do that. So what I did was I went to church one last time my first year in college, and then I entirely quit. Now, I entirely quit going to church for reasons that weren't particularly that deep or sincere. I think I quit mainly for two reasons. One, I quit because it was simply inconvenient to go to church because, my friends weren't going to church, and maybe there was like a big party the night before on a Saturday night, and I just didn't want to go, and there was something else to do. But I also quit for another reason, and that was because the Catholic Church was very repressive about sexual activity, and I wanted to enjoy being with girls, which was a very normal thing for boys my age. I didn't want to be sexually repressed like the Catholic Church wanted me to be. The Catholic Church was telling, college kids my age that if we enjoyed sexual activity, we would go to hell. And this was a very terrifying idea. I'm sure most of you have heard about hell and how horrible it is. But I finally decided in college that I was not going to cooperate with that. I was just going to enjoy being with girls and enjoying sex as long as it was responsible and consensual. And I thought that the rules against having sexual activity were just cruel and silly and kind of inhuman. And I also decided at the same time that I had had this trouble for a long time. I decided that the notion of hell, the hell was a terrible, terrible idea that didn't make any sense. It didn't seem to me that a good God who created us and wanted us to love him and all that, I didn't think that a good God would create anything as sadistic as hell. And, I thought a lot about hell, and I thought that it was just absolutely the most horrible thing that anybody could even imagine, a place where you burn forever, where the torture never ends. And I just thought hell was the cruelest, meanest idea that anyone could ever invent. And so I decided that hell just didn't exist, that no good God would go through all the bother of creating a universe and creating people and then invent a horrible way to punish them if they didn't obey. So I decided that I didn't believe in hell and that I didn't believe in sin for young Catholic kids who wanted to enjoy sex. And I decided that hell was just something made up by priests to scare people so they would keep going to church. And I still think that hell is just an absolutely terrible and wrong idea. And I recognize that it is a very effective way at keeping people, especially perhaps students your age, at keeping people religious. In both Islam and Christianity, I think hell is a very powerful motivating force of keeping people religious. But it was difficult to give up hell because when you give up hell, you sort of have to give up the idea of heaven too. And of course, I liked the idea of heaven because I liked the idea that we might live forever, that we might die and go somewhere else. And so that was hard to give up. And in a certain way, I haven't really completely given that up. That I think, well, maybe heaven still exists, but hell doesn't. But there's no scientific evidence of heaven, so I don't particularly believe in it. Of course, heaven was never presented to me as anything interesting as a Catholic boy. It just seemed like sitting on clouds and listening to angels play harps, and it didn't seem that interesting. So so there I was. I was 18 years old. I had stopped going to church, and I was now a free thinker, like all of you. Now, I don't think my reasons for leaving religion are very deep. They're really quite shallow. And I think that a lot of you probably have more serious reasons for being a free thinker. And I come into contact with people all the time who are thinking of leaving religion, and they have more serious reasons than I do. A lot of times their reasons are based in what they're learning in school. Like a lot of times they're scientific reasons. They study something in science that doesn't make sense. It doesn't jive with what they're being heard about in religion. Uh, just the whole notion that God created dinosaurs before us and all these other creatures, and the earth is billions of years old, and people are just like in the last few tiny bit of history, and that never made sense to me. And also some people just read a lot of history, like I studied history, and then religion doesn't make sense to them because you wonder, well, why did God just pick this small group, whatever, like perhaps the Hebrews, and he gave them a religion, but he didn't give other people a religion, or why does God, who controls everything, uh, why does he allow multiple religions, and why does he allow people not to believe religion, and it all becomes very illogical. So there's a lot of reasons to decide to abandon religion and become a free thinker. um, Now I do want to point out that in the free thinker movement, I would say there's two different kinds of free thinkers. There's a lot of atheists who think that all religions are bad and that religion has nothing of value. And I want to assure you that I am not one of those people, and my nonprofit is not a religion. Is not a free thinking organization that hates religion or thinks that the idea is completely evil. I think that religions do have a particular value because they can provide people with a moral code, and I think that a moral code is valuable. I think moral codes help us guide our lives and our behavior. I believe in being a moral person who wants to make the world a better place. I believe that it's good to have a purpose in life, and that purpose in life should be to help improve the world. Specifically, I believe that it is our duty as human beings to try to make each other happy and to try to relieve any suffering that other humans might be having, might be enduring. So, this is something that comes up a lot in atheist chat rooms. My particular organization does not believe in ridiculing religion, and we don't believe in ridiculing people who are religious. So back to college, there I was, a free thinker, and I was wandering around for a long time, and I'm still wandering around trying to create for myself the ideal moral code to live by. Um, and I want to go back to the previous point. My nonprofit actually has a policy where we don't allow people to participate in our nonprofit if they ridicule religion, or if they, I think it's a harmful notion for atheists and free thinkers to spend a lot of time ridiculing religion, because then it just creates this opinion that's detrimental to humanists. The public starts thinking that atheists are just people who hate religion, or atheists are people who hate God. So I prefer to call myself a humanist. And what does that mean? What does it mean to say that one is a humanist? So I'm going to give you a couple of definitions of that. And some of these definitions they're online. You can find them. The definition of secular humanism is that it is a philosophical and ethical stance that emphasizes reason, science, human values, and moral principles without reliance on religious belief or supernatural elements. It promotes the idea that humans are capable of being ethical and compassionate through rational thinking and shared human experience, rather than divine authority. The key principles of secular humanism are emphasis on reason, critical thinking, and evidence-based knowledge. Also, separation of religion from government and policy, support for human rights, equality, and individual freedom. Okay, I'm going to expand on this a little bit. I believe that a humanist is someone who believes that human beings 100% have the power to determine their own destiny. Humanists do not believe that a god or a devil or multiple gods or goddesses or demons or angels or any of those creatures, uh, entities, are determining our future. We do not believe that there are messengers or prophets from God, because we don't believe there is a God who created us and has a plan that we have to follow. Humanists do not believe that the Bible or the Quran are sacred books, and we do not believe that the rules in those books are from any God, and we do not believe that we have to follow those rules. We also think that Jesus was just a man and Muhammad was just a man. Another thing that humanists generally don't believe is we don't believe that prayer has power. We don't believe that you can just pray to a God and he will give you what you want. This is something I came across in Africa a lot, in Uganda. in Ugandan villages, there are students who believe that if you leave your pencil in a church, the next morning the pencil will write the correct answers on a test. And we don't believe that's true, and we think that's a really uh, crazy and useless belief. We don't believe in religious magic. We only believe in proof that a scientific study can provide. That is why I like the term scientific humanism, because it indicates that science is the truest way that we now have to determine what is true and what is not true. You have also perhaps heard of the term critical thinking. Humanists believe in being skeptical and not believing something is true unless we are given proof that it is true. Humanists also don't believe in the idea of faith. Faith is I think it's correctly termed blind faith. Uh, Faith is believing in something simply because you are asked by, say, a religion to believe in it. I was told by a lot of priests uh, in the Catholic Church to just have faith, to just believe in something, even though it didn't seem to me to be true. They would just say, just believe it. It's in the Bible. And we believe, humanists believe, that as thinking human beings, we are supposed to ask questions and supposed to seek to know the true answers. Humanists also don't believe in superstitions. We think that one of the reasons we were asked to get involved in Uganda first, because there's a lot of traditional African medicine that believes in witch doctors. And the witch doctors, they make money telling people false things, telling people that if you give me a goat or a chicken, something like that, or money, that I can make it rain, or I can make good things happen for you, or I can prevent bad things from happening to you. And we don't believe any of that is true. We believe those people are being used by the witch doctors and taken advantage of. Okay, having said all that, I still do believe that religions have value if they attempt to provide people, if they provide people with moral and existential direction to their life. I know that certain religious books, like the Quran and the Bible, I view them as books of philosophy that might have some advice in them that's useful. I don't believe they have any divine guidance in them. There's nothing in those books that are from a God, and there's nothing in those books that is absolutely correct and can't be questioned. But I still think that there are advice in those books that I am personally happy to accept. For example, in the Ten Commandments, I think the idea that thou shalt not kill is a good is good advice, and I'm happy to follow that. I think the commandment to honor thy father and thy mother, I like that, particularly as a parent. I don't think I followed that well when I was younger, but now that I'm older and have children, I appreciate that rule. I also think that not lying is a good commandment, and not stealing is generally a good commandment. Okay, I also want to talk a little bit about my particular nonprofit, Humanist Mutual Aid Network. We are a believer in something that I just made up. I call it Humanist Humanitarianism. I believe in humanitarianism, and humanitarianism is the belief that promoting human welfare and the commitment to helping people, particularly in need, is a good thing to do. Humanitarianism emphasizes compassion, empathy, and the protection of human dignity through charity, advocacy, and efforts to alleviate suffering. So, my organization is Humanist Humanitarian. We are humanists who believe in helping others. And uh, we actually kind of started because I was on Reddit. I think that some of you might be familiar with Reddit. It's a very popular chat box. And I was reading about atheism, and some Christians were making fun of atheists, saying, "What good do atheists do? Have you ever heard of an atheist orphanage? Ha ha, no, you haven't." So I decided then that as an atheist, I was going to start the world's first atheist orphanage. And that's what I did with the help of some friends. And we started the first atheist orphanage. That was back in 2014. And we started it in Kasisi, Uganda. and we got a lot of press attention for it, the world's first atheist orphanage. And ever since then, we've maintained the same kind of position. We believe in being atheist humanitarians, helping people. Okay. I want to say that another big influence on our organization is a specific book written by an atheist philosopher named Peter Singer, who is a professor at Princeton University. Peter Singer wrote a book called The Life You Can Save. It is about the ethical requirement that people should try to save lives if you can. So, and some of the points that Peter Singer makes in his book is that global poverty is preventable. He believes that, well, he emphasizes that millions of people die each year from poverty-related causes that can be prevented if wealthier people just contributed to it. And that's something that we believe and that we're trying to do. As humanist humanitarians, we're trying to alleviate poverty. And as you know, Africa definitely has more poverty than any other continent. So Africa has always been the main place where we work. We also work in other places that are impoverished. In Myanmar and Nepal in Asia are quite poor, and there's a lot of people in India that are quite poor. But generally, mostly, I would say 80% of our work is in Africa, and trying to relieve poverty there, specifically for humanist communities, groups of people who approach us and say, we are humanists, and we say, that's wonderful. Would you be our partner? And we will help you. So, um, so my personal philosophy is I'm a science-believing humanist humanitarian who started my nonprofit to do good in the world. And my aim with the nonprofit is twofold. I want to promote secular humanist thinking, and I want to alleviate poverty. My nonprofit has been in existence for 13 years. We started off building humanist primary schools in Uganda. We built 5 of those, but we're not really doing that anymore. What we like to do is fund humanist groups like your group, and we like to fund them with sustainability funding. And what this means is we like to give them enough money to start a business whereby they can support themselves. At this moment, we have 30 partners, actually 33 because we just added 3 yesterday. We have 33 partners. 13 of them are college groups like yourself, free thinking groups, and the other 20 are community groups, people outside of college that have started humanist groups. So now what we're going to do is Eric has 15 slides that I sent him to show some of the projects that we have done over the years. So I'm going to have him show these slides, and I'm going to have him explain, and I will explain what they are. Okay, this is a project that we do in Ghana in a city called Takoradi. These are the Takoradi humanist women. And what we did there, we do a lot of this, is we paid somebody to offer a basket weaving workshop. It's a vocational skill. So I think these are really quite remarkable. These women took a 6-week workshop, learned how to make baskets from this expert that we paid to train them, and now they have a marketable skill. And that's our goal, is to help humanists support themselves. So let's have the next slide here. Okay, this is in Uganda. We used to be called Humanist Global Charity. That's why it says Humanist Global. This is Uganda. This is the Casa 2 Women Collective. It's a rural group, and what they've done is they've made bio briquettes. They've taken like waste plant material, and they've made briquettes that can be used to heat a house and cook food in. It's a very eco-friendly project. And the next slide is this is a very recent project. This is from Mozambique. And this is a very popular one that we're teaching in a lot of countries now. This is cell phone repair. We hired a cell phone repair expert to train our humanists there to train them how to repair cell phones. And this is a skill that I mean, I wish I personally knew how to do this. And this is something that could be done in Nairobi if your particular group wanted to hire an expert to train other humanists how to fix cell phones. This would be a great thing to do. Okay, what's the next slide? This is a project that took place in Kenya that George Ongare did for us. These are children with albinism, and we're happy to help them. They are actually, these children with albinism are they're in a place near Kisumu, and people with albinism have, they need products to help them because they're prone to getting sun damage on their eyes, lips, and skin. So we bought them some products to help them with that, and they also like to do drawing, so we bought them a lot of drawing materials. And it's always very easy for us to raise money for children with albinism, because people are aware that they're persecuted in parts of Africa. Witch doctors, so we've heard, like to kidnap them, cut them up for body parts, and they say that these body parts are valuable, and they're witchcraft practitioner. This is a very horrible belief. Okay, the next slide. The next slide. Okay, this is back in Uganda. This is another vocational workshop. These are orphan boys, and so we provided them with a woodworking and furniture building workshop so that they would have a marketable skill. Orphans, as you know, are the poorest of the poor in Africa and all over the world. They don't have parents to support them. They often don't have enough support to go to school and learn anything. So we support quite a few orphanages, and we've started orphanages. Right now, I think we have an orphanage there's one in Nepal that we support. There's one in Chad Republic. There's one in Chad, there's one in Niger Republic, and there's one in Liberia. Okay, next slide. Some of you may know what this is and others may not. This is a grasshopper trap. We believe in giving people technology that enables them to provide for themselves. This is a grasshopper trap. At night, they light lights. I'm imagining the lights are in those barrels underneath. They light lights, and the grasshoppers show up, and the grasshoppers bang themselves against the metal walls there, and the grasshoppers die, and they're eaten by children at this school. This is our orphanage school there, Bazoha Orphanage Humanist School. And so the grasshoppers, hundreds of grasshoppers are killed every night during grasshopper season. The children eat them as a nutritious protein snack, and they also sell extra ones for income for the school. This probably won't work in downtown Nairobi as a project. Okay, next slide. This is one of our favorite projects. This is in Nigeria. This is our World Peace Internet Cafe. This is set up in northern Nigeria. It trains widows and orphans in computers, gives them free training, and it charges other people, and it's a self-supporting cyber cafe. It makes money by renting computer time to people. It also makes money teaching computer skills, and it also has a copy machine and devices like that. And we've also started other internet cafes. We have one in Ghana. We just started one in Ghana. So next slide. This is in India. This, as you can see, is a mushroom. This is we're helping a humanist school in the state called Jharkhand. These are indigenous people, and the school is named after a humanist leader of the indigenous movement in India. Next slide. This is back in Nigeria, in northern Nigeria. These are widows, and our partner on the far left, his name is Sadiq. He has started, he calls it a noodle factory. He has purchased all these noodle making machines. We gave them money to buy these noodle making machines, and they're making noodles. And these widows who are living in an IDP camp, a refugee camp, their husbands were killed by Boko Haram, so they're living in a refugee camp. But now they have a way to support themselves because we bought them these machines, and they can make noodles and sell the noodles. Okay, next slide. This is a pharmacy in Uganda. We have started probably 15 or 20 pharmacies. Right now, I think we started about 6 or 8 in Uganda, and we also have pharmacies. We just opened one in Chad. And pharmacies are a fantastic thing to start. I think we often give away free condoms from the pharmacies, and we give away free sanitary pads. And we can also provide immunizations against various diseases. We can provide medications for malaria and cholera, hepatitis, other diseases. So pharmacies are great, and they also show the power of science, the power of modern medicine. So teaching people that they can be cured through science, not through religion. Okay, next slide. This is just a school. It's a secondary school in Uganda, and they're just all these girls are just waving sanitary pads. We have handed out thousands of sanitary pads, and we've also given money to buy a lot of sewing machines so girls and their mothers can make sanitary pads. And sanitary pads are fantastic to provide because a lot of times girls in impoverished families stop going to school because they don't have sanitary pads. So they just stop going to school, and then that leads to early marriage or forced marriage and unemployment. So we want girls to stay in school, and one thing we do to help them stay in school is provide sanitary pads. A main place that we provide sanitary pads is actually in Nepal. Nepal has a lot of poverty, especially up in the Himalaya mountains in the rural areas. So we have volunteers who hike up into the Himalayas and give sanitary pads to rural girls up there. Okay, next slide is, this is just a sex education class, and this is in India, Kerala, India. And this is a wonderful group. It's one of my favorite groups. There is a humanist Buddhist group called the Navayana, and that is what the school is. It's a Navayana Buddhist group. They actually don't believe in God. They're atheist Buddhists who don't believe in God, but they believe in doing in working for social causes. Okay, next slide. We're going to the end of this pretty soon. This is another very popular program that we do. It can probably be done in Nairobi as well. It's making shoes and sandals out of recycled tires. And this is in Uganda, and the boys are all orphans. So it's another one of our orphan training programs. We have since done a project like this. We've done 2 projects like this in Chad and 1 project like this in Lesotho. And this could probably even be done in Nairobi, where you can find lots of spare tires to make shoes and sandals out of. Okay, next slide. Oh, this is our very most popular project that we do. You could do this in Nairobi as well. What we do is we provide solar panels, and solar panels have 2 very, very good usages. One, they can provide electricity, free electricity to whoever has one. And this is important, especially in countries where the power grid breaks down. If the power grid breaks down at night, children can't even study. They don't have any lights to read books. And the other thing they do is they can provide income, because what our partners do is they set it up so that people can charge their phones off the solar panel, and then they tell their community that this is available, and they charge them a bit of money. So they can gain some money by allowing people to charge their phones off their solar panel. This is actually a pharmacy here. We gave this solar panel to Hope Health Pharmacy in Chad. So now that pharmacy is, the refrigerator where some medicines are kept is always the refrigerator is always on, and the pharmacy is making some extra money by charging local phones. Okay, and that might be the last slide. Let's see if there's another one. Oh, here's another one. This is also a really great project. This is from Mozambique. And this is what this is called is a spice packaging business. And what they've done in Mozambique, we fund we call it a humanist community garden. And when they harvest mostly ginger and garlic and maybe a couple of others, they package it with this equipment that we bought, and then they sell it in marketplaces. And this has also been done, and another partner in Ethiopia did the same project. Any more slides? I'm not sure. Let's see. Any more slides? Next slide. That was it. Okay. So you can see that there's a lot of projects that we do, and I only showed you a fraction. I'm sure we do 50 or more. One project, a whole category of projects that I didn't show you were agricultural products, farm projects like growing corn, soybeans, pineapples, fruit trees, beans. We fund all kinds of projects like that. We fund just about anything that people want to do that they think they can make money at, except there's a few things that we don't fund because our donors don't like it. We have a lot of vegetarian donors, so they don't want to fund raising goats or rabbits, although they will fund raising chickens. We don't fund, we try to avoid funding pesticides, and we try to avoid, the donors don't like funding haircutting salons or beauty salons or fashion design because we just think that's not for poor people. So I can't raise any money for that. And we have stopped funding soap making workshops because we've just done so many. And I think we're going to stop funding cake baking workshops because we've just done so many. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is sustainability, because I know you're all in college and you're wondering how you're going to make money in the future. So I'm really quickly going to talk about sustainability and just give you some advice that I have about possible careers that you could do. Okay, the first thing I'm going to mention is that I have noticed just in my own life that a lot of people become wealthy because they follow a vocation where they can be mentored by a family member or a friend of the family. I have a brother named Robert who learned how to make gas detection devices from my grandfather, and he eventually started his own gas detection business, and it did very well. He actually has $30 million now. And I have another brother named Pierre who was also tutored in mechanical engineering by his uncle, who is also named Peter. So Uncle Peter taught my brother Peter a lot of things about mechanical engineering, and now that brother is also very wealthy. Again, just by following a relative into a business that the relative would help him in. Plus, I have a friend who is a successful dentist, and he's a very successful dentist, and his daughter went to school. She studied an entirely different subject, and then her last year in college, she decided, what the heck, I'm going to be a dentist. And so she has switched to dentistry, and she's going to take over her father's business, and she's going to have a wonderful future doing that. And I have a friend named John who had a best friend in college, and he befriended his best friend's dad, who had a business in Texas, and his best friend's dad, who had the business in Texas, wanted to expand in California, so he gave my friend John the entire branch of the business, and John has been thriving ever since then. So that's one bit of advice, is to look around and see if there's anybody in your family who's doing any kind of business that you would like to learn from, because that person can help you. I was not that lucky. I wanted to study things that nobody in my family was particularly interested in, and so I was on my own. Um, the second bit of advice I want to give is you can use artificial intelligence to get an immense amount of research done. There are AI platforms on the internet. I personally use ChatGPT. It's very popular, and I ask ChatGPT questions almost every day. And you can do that as well if you have any questions about, what career you should pursue. This is a question you can ask ChatGPT. So I kind of did it for you. Um, I asked ChatGPT this question. If you are a student in Kenya and you have approximately $1,800, which is, I guess, Kenya shillings 240,000, what business ideas would realistically work in Nairobi? So here's a list that I got from ChatGPT about businesses that would work, that you could start in Kenya for 240,000 shillings. I am imagining that's a lot of money, but perhaps a group could get that much money together. So this is what they said. A mobile car wash would be a successful business. Laundry and ironing services would be a successful business. Barber shops, beauty salons, event decoration would be a successful business. In food and beverage ventures, a street food cart serving smokies. I don't know what smokies are. Serving smokies, eggs, chips, and mandazi. I don't know what mandazi is. Says that would work because it would have a high daily cash flow. A fruit juice or smoothie stand would work because it's very popular among health conscious students. A lunchbox delivery service could work. Uh, in terms of product based businesses, um, thrift store clothing would work. Phone accessories kiosk selling chargers, covers, and earphones would work. Custom printing t-shirts would work. And that's interesting to me because I did that for years. I still do that. I still custom print t-shirts. And digital online businesses that would work, which I think you might be interested in as students. Social media management for small businesses. Freelance graphic design would work, or content writing. Drop shipping / mini e-commerce stores would work. And it said that, I was surprised to see this, but it did say that there were agricultural ideas that would work in Nairobi, like they call it Kayenyeji chicken rearing, small scale. Popular poultry demand is steady in Nairobi markets. It also said vertical farming of herbs would work. And that's something that's very popular in California. Vertical farming, that's okay when you build like a wall and you grow herbs on it. Urban farming is growing due to food security and space. Okay. And the second question I asked ChatGPT was I wanted a list of 20 career paths that Kenyan students could pursue with a high potential for success, profitability, and future growth. And this is what ChatGPT told me would be profitable careers for Kenyan students. Okay, software developer, cybersecurity specialist, data analyst, web designer, digital marketer, accountant, financial analyst, startup founder, supply chain professional, content creator, YouTuber, videographer, photographer, graphic designer, brand consultant, legal practitioner, any medical profession, doctor, nurse, lab technician, teachers and online tutors, also clinical psychologists and counselors, because mental health awareness is increasing, and schools, hospitals, and NGOs need those services. Also, electricians, plumbers, mechanics, construction project managers, renewable energy technicians, because Kenya is moving towards green energy. And sustainability and future forward careers include environmental consultants and climate specialists and agri-tech specialists. Now, I want to end, I'm going to come in right at, I'm going to finish in 4 minutes. I want to end with a book recommendation. I am presently reading a book by a Dutch author, and the book is called Moral Ambition. The book just came out 2 weeks ago. The author's name is Rutger Bregman, and he introduces the idea of moral ambition. And he is hoping that young people are driven to not just make money, but to try to contribute meaningfully to society by trying to help important problems in the world now, like climate change, inequality, and global health. So I recommend this book. It provides meaningful examples of lives dedicated to helping humanity, such as with people such as Thomas Clarkson, who dedicated his life to abolishing the slave trade, and another person, Rob Mather, who founded the Against Malaria Foundation. He points out very powerfully, I think, that all of us are going to spend approximately 80,000 hours of our life working in our lifetime, and he urges readers to consider how all this time can be spent doing work that actually helps address global problems. Okay, so that is the conclusion of my lecture, and I'm ready for any questions. I guess I need Eric now to let me know what the questions are. Oh, I'm looking at the questions. Okay. I'm looking at the questions now. First question is from Alphonse Kekwete. My apologies for if I mispronounced that. I'm sure I did. The question is, as a historian, how do you think religion has historically influenced the development of moral and legal systems in different societies? That is a really good question. The development of moral and legal systems. Yes, it is. Well, the answer is that it has hugely influenced the development. I think that, uh, uh, I mean, I think that, I think, I think probably every country, I'm sure every country in the world, almost every country in the world, has a moral and legal system that is based on religion. There's only a few majority atheist countries in the world, a majority non-religious countries in the world. One of them is China, which is soon going to be the global leader in wealth. Uh, it's already the global leader in manufacturing and other categories. But other than China and Vietnam, and I think Sweden and Czech Republic are also majority non-religion. I would say every other country, their legal and moral system is incredibly influenced by religion. And religion is actually, even though a lot of these countries believe in separation of church and state, um, the nation is because there are so many religious people in these countries, they have an enormous amount of political power. This is evident in the United States now, where the Christians are trying to do all kinds of things. They're trying to abolish abortion, and they're trying to get prayer back in school, and they just have a huge influence. Oh wow, we have a lot of humanist questions here. I'm going on to the next question, which is from Emma Niacarario. It says, and why do Christians have testimonies after prayers if they pray and believe and things do happen? Testimonies after prayer. I'm not quite sure what that means. Testimonies after prayer. Oh, you mean that they say they prayed for something and it did happen? Yeah, it's a big belief. It's a big belief in Catholicism and Christianity in general that prayer does work. In fact, it's interesting. You know that in Catholicism and other Christian faiths, there's this whole notion of saints. And the only way you can become a saint is if people pray to you, and if people pray to you and 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 they get what they want. If that keeps happening repeatedly, the Catholic Church decides that you're a saint, and they grant you sainthood. So there are testimonies like that it happens. Now, I question those, and there's been a lot of scientific studies. You can look them up. I recommend a website for you. It's called pubmed.gov, and that is a list of all the studies. It's a list of all the studies that are cataloged at the U.S. Department of Health, and all the scientific studies are there, and you can like type in what you want to look for, and there's no evidence that prayer actually works. I think that there's in certain ways, I'm not going to say prayer ever works. You can't just pray for something, and I consider that a lot of times that people just say really stupid things about the power of prayer. But I think that if people concentrate and concentrate on something and pray that something happens, I think it might help focus their concentration a little bit. But there's no scientific evidence that prayer works at all. And certainly praying to a God has no power, because gods don't exist. They're not entities. Nobody's if you know somebody who's seen a god, let me know, but uh, there's no evidence of any of this. And I think it's interesting that all these sacred books were written when we had a very small understanding of what the universe was. Nobody's ever told me like where in the universe heaven exists and where in the universe hell exists. They haven't found it in the cosmos at all. Okay, I'm going on to the next question. Do you think modern secular movements borrow ethical principles that were originally rooted in religious teachings? Alphonse, again, Alphonse, you are a smarty, and you deserve an A in whatever class you're taking. Okay, and he says, oh, wait, yes, yes, I do think secular movements borrow ethical principles from religious teachings. I do think they do. But I think it's actually the reverse, actually, that religious teachings are based on humanist understanding of just how the world works. That humanists understand that we all have to live together, and that we need rules to live by so that we can live together peacefully and help each other, and that religions use those humanist ideas, but they say that they're actually from a god or from a messenger. Um, some examples are easy to understand, like thou shalt not kill. Killing other people and generally being violent doesn't create a harmonious society. And there's other rules that I think, like stealing, that's an antisocial kind of behavior. There's other rules that I think are being questioned, like marriage. There's this whole notion of being married, which is just a societal construct, to be married. But I think in some ways that, and there's a lot of religious ideas about matrimony, like you're married and you can't, divorce might be bad in some religions. But I think there are some scientific studies that show that marriage is good for the family unit, that children do better if they're raised in a stable family environment. I'm going on to Alphonse's next question. As a free thinker, so as to say an atheist, what is the primary ethical framework that guides your humanitarian work and commitment? And what motivates you to dedicate your time and resources to these activities in a context where religious organizations lead such initiatives? The second part of that is probably the easiest part to answer. I mentioned that I just was so frustrated that the Christians are always bragging about how they do good work, and the atheists do not do good work. And I actually ended up researching this and writing an article called "Atheists Are the Most Generous." Because when you actually look at the statistics, when you look at the actual money, when you look at the actual money that Christians spend on philanthropy, it's a lot of it's just spent on churches, and that's not really helping anybody except you know, the priests and the nuns. You know, they build or just the glamour of the church. It's self-serving. It's not actually helping the poor at all. So when I think about humanitarian work, or when I think about charity, I think about helping people who are actually in need. I don't particularly think people who donate to symphonies and operas and churches and expensive museums. I don't particularly regard that as humanitarian or charitable work. I think helping the poorest of the poor is truly humanitarian. Now, the entire notion of helping the poorest of the poor is actually something that Isaiah, the Jewish prophet, wrote about, and there's a lot of Jewish prophets that wrote about helping the poorest of the poor. And of course, Jesus Christ is a fantastic role model. I have been called actually a Christian atheist by Christian friends because I believe what Jesus Christ said about helping the poor is very valuable, and a lot of uh, what I believe is is partly based on ideas from Jesus Christ. But I have a lot of my own ideas about Jesus Christ as well. You know, I just believe that if he existed, and there's a lot of people that don't believe he even existed, that he's simply a literary character. Um, but he did have a lot of humanitarian comments about helping the poor, helping beggars. He did all these gestures, washing the feet of the poor. So I would say that was, and there's a lot of that was an influence, and also Buddha. The Buddha was also a very good person. He Oh, I would say actually, okay, I would say, you know, I think about this a lot. Who are my role models? And I have two major role models. And one is B.R. Ambedkar, a name you might not be familiar with, but he was a Dalit, an untouchable in India, who advocated um, advocated for the untouchables, the lowest caste in Hinduism. So he's a fantastically brilliant person who wrote the Indian Constitution, and he actually tried to get, with some success, tried to get Indian untouchables to leave Hinduism and to join Buddhism, but a certain kind of Buddhism called Navayana Buddhism, which I mentioned earlier. So I would say that he is a big influence on me, and another big influence is a Russian whose name is Peter Kropotkin, and he's actually an anarchist communalist who really believed he invented the term mutual aid, and so my organization, Humanist Mutual Aid Network, borrows this term mutual aid from Peter Kropotkin, and Kropotkin believed that human beings. He totally believed that human beings should help each other, and he argued against Darwin. Some people misinterpreted or overemphasized Darwin's belief that evolution is about survival of the fittest, that human evolution is a battle of competition. And Kropotkin believed that the history of humanity is really about cooperation. So I'm a believer in his ideas about that. The next question we have is from Samuel Matuku. In the age of AI and automation, what does self-reliance mean now? That's a really good question. Um, that's a really good question because there's an enormous amount of fear that AI is going to take over all kinds of jobs, and and I think that's something you might want to look into. Ask AI itself about it, and just hope that AI tells you tells you the right answer. And there's the fear that AI is going to take over a lot of high paying jobs like lawyers, because you know right now lawyers have to read hundreds of pages all the time, but an artificial intelligence device can read those pages much quicker and come up with answers and arguments much quicker. So what does self-reliance mean now? Self-reliance means, being able to support oneself in the world and live happily. And that means being able to have enough income to do that. So yes, look into what jobs are going to be still available. I have heard that I can't remember. There's like some AI inventor, and he's urging his kids to go into careers that he thinks were going to be still in existence in 10 or 20 years. I'm gonna run on to the next question. How can humanism guide ethical behavior without reliance on divine authority? I think that's a fairly easy question. Um, I that human beings haven't solved it all. I mean, we live in a the world lives in constant warfare, and there's constant there's relentless global inequity. Some people have, I think, Elon Musk has $350 billion, and there's all kinds of people who don't know where their next meal is coming from. So in terms of ethical behavior, I really like the notion of, I mean, people have to find their own particular purpose in life. You have to find it. I believe that's like a notion from existentialism. Existence precedes essence. Uh, that you've got to find your own purpose. But I believe, for my own particular purpose, that the purpose is to relieve suffering, relieving human suffering. And that's just because, as a human, I have empathy, and so when I see suffering, I try to relieve it. And my particular goal in relieving suffering is to try to alleviate poverty, and try to provide education. And I think ethical behavior is just simply behavior in which we try to do what's good for the what's good for others. We try to act in a way that will make the world a better place. And we don't need a divine authority to do that. We just need um, our own urge to survive and to help the rest of the world survive. I'm running on to Tyra's question. According to you, you did quit religion. Did you ever feel guilty? And if yes, how does one deal with guilt if they want to quit religion? I didn't, I think you might mean guilty in terms of disappointing your parents, and I certainly understand that. Um, I understand that because my mother prayed for me for years. I mean, it's such a waste of time. For all I know, she's still praying for me. My mother is 97 years old, and I quit, and she knows I quit religion when I was 18. So, my gosh, I mean, that means that she's probably been praying for me like for 57 years. I know that she is praying for me. I don't actually feel guilty about it. I just feel a little bit annoyed that she's wasting her time doing that. So, did I feel guilty? No, I actually didn't feel guilty. And how does one deal with guilt? I don't know. Guilt. If you have any guilt other than disappointing your parents, let me know. Put it in the chat box. But that was the only guilt that I ever had, and I didn't really have that. I kind of felt, I felt resentment more than guilt. I felt like, why did you put me through all that torture of religion? Why did you make me go to Catholic school? Why did you give me these rules that just bothered me? Why did you tell me about hell and terrify me? Okay, next question, again from Alphonse. Has your experience in Africa shaped your understanding? Wait, I lost it. Wait, here it is. Has your experience in Africa shaped your understanding of atheism, humanitarianism, or the intersection of the two in any significant way? That's a really good question again. I think, I think, I think, I think studying religion, the religion of Africa, is super interesting. Um, it's super confusing in a way, I think, for Africans, because Africans are also victims of colonialism, and it gets very complicated. Because Africa had their traditional religion, which most educated Africans that I know say that traditional African religion is as bad or worse than any of these other religions. It's just terrible. Uh, Belief in witchcraft and voodoo, et cetera, is just absolutely terrible. There was some African intellectual or pseudo-intellectual did write an essay that I published somewhere, and it was called something like Africa should abandon Christianity and Islam and return to its traditional religion. So he published an essay like that, where he thought that he regarded Christianity and Islam as foreign religions, and Africa should return to its traditional religion. But he was sort of struck down by other people who jumped in and said, no, traditional African religion is terrible. Now, I don't know that much about traditional African religion, but I imagine there's some kind of humanist strain in African religion. I've heard there's something in Ghana, some kind of religious belief there that is kind of humanistic. And then there's these notions, is it called Ubuntu, sharing, and we're a community, and these kind of notions are humanistic. Um, so there's that. I do think that it's confusing a little bit to go into Africa as sort of an atheist missionary, because again, it's kind of like a colonialist gesture. I mean, Africa had its own religions, and then Islam came in, and then Christianity came in, and now a white guy like me is going in and saying, no, you should abandon these other colonialist imposed religions and listen to me. I'm a white guy promoting atheism. So I think all of that's kind of problematic. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next question. For the project on humanism in Kenya, what can be your way forward? Would you like us to be part of your organization or come up with our own projects to aid people? My understanding is my organization just gave freethinkers, freethinkers, the freethinkers group at University of Nairobi, we just gave them $800 to buy event equipment, speakers, microphones, and things like that. So, I mean, the goal should be to try to support your organization's activities with that equipment that our funds provided. So that's what we're hoping. We actually have a policy at my nonprofit that we only fund people once. It's called a one-time only sustainability grant, where we just look at your organization, we say, what do you want that you believe can sustain your group forever? Sustainability means that you can support your activities without any more outside help. So that's what we did. So I hope
Hello,
that
Hank. Can I add, Hank?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to add, I have seen that question. So I think there's a question there. So I met the University of Nairobi, and of course, I've shared with them some equipment that I bought. So I'll go back again to Gloria. Gloria is the chairman of the group, and so I think I showed them the equipment that I bought, and to anyone who want any inquiry, go to Gloria, and I'll see Gloria again probably next Wednesday.
Okay,
next
that's
Thursday,
great.
something like that. So I think that one I've tackled, and I've sat down with the group, and I'll go and see Gloria again, and then we'll finish about that. So
Okay.
I think that's that. Okay.
So go ahead,
Next.
Nuzla. Yeah, talk to George about that. Okay, Alphonse has a last question. Have you ever faced resistance in Africa or any part of the globe you've worked in, mainly from church and religious groups, because you don't believe in God, but you still do humanitarian work, which is considered godly? The first part of that question is the easiest part to answer. Yes, we face enormous resistance in Africa. and in other parts of the globe. We face enormous resistance. And in fact, we try to find countries to work in where we will get resistance because we want to help those humanists that are being persecuted for their belief. One of the main countries we've worked in is Nigeria, where our main partner there, Mubarak Bala, was thrown in jail for being, for being secular, for being an atheist. He was thrown in jail, and he just got out of jail after 3.5 years in jail. So, and there's a lot of humanists all over the world that are kicked out of their families, or they're ostracized. Well, we help a lot of LGBT people who the religions they were growing up in regard them as sinful, and then they're kicked out of their families and they're ostracized in their communities. They're yeah. So we try to work in those countries. Oh, I see a little note here. Center for Inquiry is going to answer this question live. Okay. Do you want to do that? Wait. Okay. I'm talking to Eric here. Yes. Okay. Uh, okay, but the rest of Alphonse's question is, do we face resistance because we don't believe in God, but we still do humanitarian work, which is considered godly? Well, they can consider it godly if they want. We don't consider it godly. We just consider it human behavior, ethical human behavior. They might say, well, you're religious because you're doing godly work, but I think that's just silly. Okay, I don't see any other questions. That's that's the end of that. Um, and I'm not sure uh how to end this.
Oh, Hank.
Uh-huh.
Yes, Hank. So I think we've come to the end of the session.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So
Wow.
that was a good presentation. And let me see. Oh, now the Hank. So they want to reach you. Probably someone is writing there that they want to reach you. So probably I don't know how we'll do this. Probably they link through me, or they can write to you direct.
Oh, I'll just type in, can I type in my email address?
Yeah, yeah, the email
I'll type in
address.
my
Yes, yes, yes.
I'll type it in, humanist. Okay. Let's see if I spelled it right. Yeah, just humanistmutualaid@gmail.com. Yes, that's
Yes, so
yes. And I'm happy to
so
answer.
to the students,
Mhm.
that is the contact of Hank. And so if you feel like probably you could talk to him about anything, about you can recap about what he has said, or probably if you think you can, I don't know whether Hank, so Hank decides about all the things that goes that happens in his organization. So probably you could reach him if you have a proposal. I don't know whether Hank will agree on that, but Hank, that was a good presentation, and I think that it was it was inspiring to the students, and I believe I enjoyed it. So, any last words?
Oh, last words from me. No, I had a great time. I always enjoy talking talking about myself, talking about my opinions. It's very enjoyable, and I got to do that for a long time. And I hope to hear from you. I'm happy that 28 people participated in this, 28 students. That's wonderful. And I hope to hear from you all. And I hope to have a continued relationship with University of Nairobi students. And I hope the group grows larger. I'm concerned about certain questions like this, the person who experiences guilt. I remember I remember it was pretty horrible for me actually for like about 10 years because I felt very isolated from my family that was religious and I wasn't. So I know that this can be very difficult if one decides to leave the belief system of their family. It can be very difficult, very painful, very alienated. So I hope you all support each other, if you or end up going through anything like that. You know, there may also be various punishments that your family can inflict upon you. Or yes, there can be a lot of hardship in becoming a free thinker. So I hope that everybody supports each other in this. At least you have each other, and that's wonderful. And you can reach out to me or George if you want some advice. I didn't feel guilt. I felt sadness that I was cut off from my family for a while. But it all worked out. I've kind of come from a family of seven. Uh, I have six brothers and sisters. I have two brothers that are also atheists, and one of them is a big donor to my nonprofit. He really believes in helping humanist causes. He's been a huge donor. And so that's three of us, three out of seven that are atheists. And the other four, one is completely indifferent. She is sick of everybody arguing and she doesn't want to talk about anything to do with religion. And the other three are evangelical Christians. They're completely believe every word of the Bible, and they probably praying for the other three of us that are atheists. So but yes, it can be difficult to be a free thinker if you're from a Christian or Muslim family. Very difficult to leave.
Okay, so thank you, Hank. As you know, most of our members are new to free thinking, and I believe that I'll be having such kind of conversation so that they can know this kind of life stance. And to those people who will like to join the life stance, we are very happy and appreciative for coming to these sessions when we organize them. So we'll be organizing more sessions, and I encourage you to encourage other members to attend this kind of session because we really get a lot of inspiration from this. So I think we are ending our session. So Hank, thank you so much for taking your time to be with us. And probably I can still engage you in future talks like this.